Typical ghetto family. Father's a criminal. Daughter will be next. Judge Patricia Whitman's voice cuts through the Baltimore City courthouse. 16-year-old Zara Washington freezes beside her handcuffed father. Conversations stop. Cameras turn. Whitman performs for the gathering crowd. Look at her. Probably can't spell innocent, let alone prove it. The judge waves dismissively, like shooing a fly. The gesture shows everyone how worthless this black teenager is. Zara's voice cuts through tension, clear and strong. Your Honor, my father served this community 20 years. I will prove he's innocent. Whitman spins around, face twisted with shock. A harsh laugh escapes. Little girl playing lawyer? This is a courtroom, not dress-up. Security guards snicker. The prosecutor grins. Spectators shake heads at this teenager's audacity. Whitman steps closer, voice venomous. Sweetheart, leave justice to people with actual brains. Courthouse doors slam shut with finality. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone in power? What would you do if everyone expected silence, but you held the key to expose everything? The Washington family apartment sits in East Baltimore, where row houses line narrow streets and corner stores display bulletproof glass. Inside their modest home, the dining table has disappeared under a mountain of legal documents, case files, and yellow legal pads covered in Zara's careful handwriting. At 16, Zara Washington should be worried about SATs and college applications. Instead, she hunches over her laptop at 2 a.m., cross-referencing police reports with court transcripts. Her natural hair is pulled into a functional ponytail, and her eyes are rimmed red from staring at screens and documents. The apartment tells the story of a family under siege. Medical bills for her grandmother Ruby are stacked on the kitchen counter, some marked in red ink with final notice. Family photos from happier times. Marcus in his police uniform at community barbecues, Zara's graduation from middle school, cite next to eviction warnings and attorney fee invoices. Her mother Diane works the night shift at Johns Hopkins Hospital, pulling double shifts to keep the family afloat. When she returns home at dawn, her scrubs are wrinkled, and her face shows the exhaustion of a woman carrying too much weight. Baby, maybe we should just accept the plea deal, Diane says quietly, setting down her nurse's bag with a heavy thud. 20 years is better than life in prison. At least he'd still be alive. But Zara doesn't look up from her laptop screen, where she's studying the timeline of events from the night her father was arrested. Mama, something's wrong with Daddy's case. The numbers don't add up. Look, the theft allegedly happened at 9:47 p.m., but Daddy's shift report shows he was still on patrol 5 miles away. Grandmother Ruby sits in her favorite chair, insulin shots and blood sugar monitor on the side table beside her. At 78, she lived through Jim Crow, marched with civil rights leaders, and isn't about to let her granddaughter give up without a fight. Child, your granddaddy fought for justice when it was dangerous just to speak up, Ruby says, her voice carrying the authority of lived experience. Sometimes you have to fight the system yourself because ain't nobody else gonna do it for you. 6 months ago, Officer Marcus Washington was a neighborhood legend. For 20 years, he walked the beat in East Baltimore, where most cops only drove through with windows up and doors locked. While other officers wrote tickets and made arrests, Marcus coached Little League, organized basketball tournaments, and knew every grandmother's name. The corner where Mrs. Lane runs her grocery store was where Marcus stopped every morning for coffee. Never accepting it free, always paying full price despite her protests. The basketball court behind Thurgood Marshall Elementary was where he spent off-duty hours teaching kids to shoot hoops instead of shooting up. Marcus Washington was the cop who drove teenagers home instead of arresting them for minor infractions. He was the officer who showed up at high school graduations to cheer for kids whose fathers were in prison. He was proof that not all police were the enemy. Then came March 15th, when Detective Ray Collins allegedly discovered $50,000 in cash hidden in Marcus's patrol car after a major drug bust. The money was evidence from the largest heroin seizure in the precinct's history, and suddenly, Marcus Washington, the man who never took so much as a free cup of coffee, was branded as just another corrupt cop. The community that once celebrated him now whispers behind closed doors. Some still believe in his innocence, but others shake their heads with disappointment. I guess they all turn bad eventually, people mutter at the barbershop and beauty salon. Local news stations ran the story for weeks. Decorated officer caught in drug money scandal. The images they showed weren't of Marcus mentoring kids or helping elderly residents carry groceries. Instead, they broadcasted footage of him in handcuffs, head down, while Detective Collins explained to reporters how even good cops can go bad. Judge Patricia Whitman's chambers overlook downtown Baltimore from the 8th floor of the courthouse. Oak paneling lines the walls, interrupted by framed law degrees from Georgetown and awards from the Maryland Bar Association. Her desk, imported mahogany that costs more than most families make in 6 months, sits positioned to intimidate anyone who enters. At 53, Judge Whitman has built her reputation on being tough on crime, particularly drug-related offenses. Her conviction rate is among the highest in Maryland, and she takes pride in sending criminals away for decades. To her, the world is simple. There are law-abiding citizens who deserve protection, and there are criminals who deserve punishment. Her philosophy became clear early in her career when she told a Baltimore Sun reporter, "These people need firm hands and clear consequences. Sympathy doesn't reduce crime rates, lengthy sentences do." What the public doesn't see are her monthly dinners with Prosecutor Mills and Detective Collins at Sotto Sopra, an upscale Italian restaurant where they discuss cases over $100 bottles of wine. They call it coordination meetings, but the conversations often drift toward which defendants deserve the harshest treatment. Marcus Washington was always a problem, Whitman told them during one such dinner, months before his arrest. Too much community engagement, too many questions about proper procedure. Officers like him make our jobs harder. Detective Collins nodded, swirling his wine. Some cops forget which side they're supposed to be on. Prosecutor Mills raised his glass. Well, problems have a way of solving themselves, don't they? The visiting room at Baltimore City Detention Center smells like disinfectant and despair. Gray walls, metal tables bolted to the floor, and phones that crackle with static separate families from their loved ones behind thick glass. Marcus Washington looks older than his 45 years. His police uniform has been replaced by an orange jumpsuit, and his usually confident posture has shrunk under the weight of 18 months in jail awaiting trial. When Zara places her palm against the glass, he mirrors the gesture, and for a moment they pretend they can actually touch. "Princess, you've got your whole life ahead of you," Marcus says into the phone, his voice heavy with resignation. "Don't waste it fighting a battle we can't win." Sometimes good people lose, and that's just how the world works. But Zara leans forward, pressing closer to the glass barrier between them. "Daddy, you taught me never to give up on what's right." "You said the truth always finds a way to surface." "That was before I learned the system is bigger than the truth, baby girl. They've got lawyers, judges, evidence, witnesses, everything stacked against us. What do we have?" Zara's eyes blaze with determination that would make her civil rights activist grandmother proud. "We have something they don't, Daddy. We have the truth, and we have me." Marcus tries to smile, but worry creases his forehead. If the appeal fails, he faces 25 years to life. Zara would be 41 when he gets out, if he lives that long in prison. Their family would be destroyed, scattered to the wind like leaves in a storm. The stakes couldn't be higher, not just Marcus's freedom, but the family's survival, the community's faith in justice, and a 16-year-old girl's belief that truth can triumph over power. The eviction notice taped to the Washington family's front door flutters in the morning breeze like a white flag of surrender. Inside, Diane sits at the kitchen table surrounded by a sea of unpaid bills, counting quarters and dimes from a mason jar that once held Ruby's sweet tea. Marcus's police pension was frozen the day he was arrested. Their health insurance vanished along with his job. The family's modest savings money they'd set aside for Zara's college fund disappeared into attorney fees and court costs within the first 6 months. Diane works 16-hour shifts at the hospital, her supervisor allowing the overtime only because she's known to be reliable. But even double shifts aren't enough to cover rent, utilities, groceries, and Ruby's insulin. The diabetes medication alone costs $300 a month without insurance. "We can't afford a real lawyer anymore, baby," Diane says, her voice barely above a whisper as she sorts pills into Ruby's weekly medication organizer. "The public defender says we should take the plea deal. 20 years instead of life." Zara looks up from her homework, spread across the couch since the dining table is covered with legal documents. "Mama, Daddy is innocent. I can feel it in my bones." Ruby shifts in her chair, the old wood creaking under her weight. Despite her diabetes and high blood pressure, her mind remains sharp as a tack. "Child, sometimes being right ain't enough in this world. You need proof that people in power can't ignore you." The landlord, Mr. Peterson, has been patient longer than most would be. He knew Marcus as the officer who helped catch the teenagers who broke into his other properties. But patience has limits, and 3 months of missed rent has pushed him past his. The refrigerator hums nearly empty except for a few leftover takeout containers from Diane's hospital shifts and a gallon of milk nearing expiration. Zara has already sold her textbooks, her smartphone, and even the small television from her bedroom. Every dollar goes toward keeping the family afloat for one more week, one more day. Northwood High School's cafeteria buzzes with teenage chaos, but when Zara walks through with her lunch tray, conversations quiet, and eyes follow her like she's carrying something contagious. Her best friend since 3rd grade, Keisha, used to save her a seat at their usual table. Now that seat stays empty while Keisha sits with other friends, avoiding eye contact when Zara passes. "Girl, I can't be seen with you anymore," Keisha finally admitted 2 weeks ago, her voice apologetic but firm. "My mama said your family is in trouble now, and I can't afford that kind of reputation." The isolation extends beyond friendships. Teachers who once praised Zara's academic performance now speak to her differently, their voices carrying a mixture of pity and wariness. Mrs. Parker, her AP history teacher, pulled her aside after class. "Zara, maybe you should focus on your grades instead of other distractions. You don't want this situation to affect your future opportunities. Social media became a minefield overnight. A corrupt cop's daughter started trending locally, with cruel memes featuring Marcus's mugshot alongside jokes about bad apples and family traditions. Screenshots of these posts circulate through school group chats, ensuring Zara can't escape the humiliation even at home. At the barbershop where she works part-time sweeping floors and organizing supplies, Zara overhears conversations that stop abruptly when customers notice her presence. Some speak in hushed tones about how good families can go bad, while others debate whether Marcus was always corrupt or just got caught. Mr. Johnson, who owns the barbershop, tries to shield her from the worst of it, but even he seems uncertain sometimes. "Zara, baby, you know I got love for your family. But people talking, and talk spreads like wildfire in this neighborhood." The whispers follow her everywhere, walking to school, shopping for groceries, even at Ruby's doctor appointments where nurses recognize her last name and exchange meaningful glances. Meanwhile, Detective Ray Collins and Prosecutor Mills have been conducting their own investigation into the Washington family, looking for any detail that might strengthen their case. Collins visits Zara's school, speaking with administrators about her behavioral changes and family stress factors. "That girl's been asking too many questions around the neighborhood," Collins tells Mills during one of their regular coordination meetings. "She's been at the library researching legal precedents, talking to people about her daddy's case. It's making some folks nervous." Mills nods thoughtfully. "Maybe we need to send a clearer message about staying in their lane." The message comes in the form of vandalism. Someone spray paints "corrupt family" across the side of their row house in bright red letters. Zara's car windows are smashed in the school parking lot, and her locker is broken into twice in 1 week, though nothing valuable remains to steal. Anonymous phone calls start coming to their house at all hours. The voice is always disguised, sometimes mechanically altered, but the message stays consistent. Stop digging where you don't belong, or things will get worse for your whole family. Ruby receives the most disturbing call while Zara is at school and Diane is at work. The voice on the other end is calm and conversational, which somehow makes it more terrifying. "Mrs. Washington, that granddaughter of yours is a smart girl. It would be a shame if something happened to affect her ability to think clearly. Accidents happen to young people who don't know when to quit." Ruby's hands shake as she hangs up the phone, but her resolve only hardens. She's lived through too much history to be intimidated by faceless threats. The final pressure comes from the court system itself. Public defender Janet Torres, overwhelmed with cases and underfunded, makes her position crystal clear during their last meeting. "Zara, I've been practicing law for 15 years, and I know how this story ends," Torres says, her voice carrying the weariness of too many lost battles. "The evidence against your father is substantial. The prosecution has witnesses, documentation, and physical evidence. Sometimes you have to accept reality instead of chasing impossible dreams." The final appeal hearing is scheduled for Friday morning. If they lose, Marcus will be transferred to a maximum security prison in Western Maryland, 3 hours away. Family visits would become nearly impossible, and any chance of finding new evidence would disappear forever. Diane sits at the kitchen table Thursday night, staring at the plea agreement papers Torres left behind. "Baby, maybe we should listen to the lawyer. Maybe 20 years is better than life." But Zara looks up from her legal research, her eyes blazing with the same fire that burned in her grandmother during the civil rights movement. "Mama, since when do we give up on family? Since when do we let other people decide what's true and what's not?" The clock on the kitchen wall ticks toward midnight, counting down the hours until what might be their last chance at justice. Outside, Baltimore sleeps restlessly, unaware that a 16-year-old girl is about to make a decision that will change everything. The abandoned police evidence facility sits in East Baltimore's industrial district, surrounded by chain-link fence and rust-stained concrete. This is where Marcus Washington allegedly stole $50,000. Zara stands in the empty parking lot at dawn, studying the scene with fresh eyes. She paces between the evidence building and patrol car parking, counting steps and checking times. According to the prosecution timeline, Marcus drove here, broke into evidence storage, stole money, and returned to his car within 18 minutes. Something feels wrong. The building's security doors require 2 key cards and supervisor signature. Evidence locker needs additional authorization. Even if Marcus wanted to steal, which Zara knows he didn't, the timeline makes no physical sense. "If adults won't fight for you, then I will," she whispers, pulling out her composition notebook tracking every case detail. Her phone buzzes with grandmother's text. "Your great-grandfather fought Nazis. Your granddaddy fought Jim Crow. Now it's your turn." Standing in that lot, watching sunrise paint Baltimore's skyline gold, Zara makes a decision that will change everything. She dials the detention center. "Daddy, I'm going to represent you in court." Silence stretches across the crackling connection. "Princess, you're 16. You can't just practice law." "Actually, I can." Maryland Code Section 504 allows family members to represent defendants in criminal appeals when the defendant consents and court approves. "Baby girl, where did you learn legal codes?" Zara smiles for the first time in weeks. "I've been studying law every night for 2 years. While Mama thought I was doing homework, I was reading case law and precedents. I memorized Maryland rules of criminal procedure. Knowing law and practicing it are different things. These are experienced lawyers, and they're wrong about you. which means their experience doesn't matter if they're not seeking truth. That afternoon, Zara transforms her bedroom into a law office. She pushes her bed against the wall, sets up a card table from the church basement. Legal books from the library stack in towers around the makeshift workspace. Ms. Rodriguez, the librarian, has become unofficial mentor in Zara's legal education. Every evening, she helps navigate databases and understand court procedures. "Mija, are you sure about this path? Fighting the system is hard enough for grown lawyers with resources." Zara doesn't look up from the Maryland Court of Appeals decision. "My daddy sits in jail for something he didn't do. Every day I don't fight is another day he loses hope." Preparation becomes all-consuming. Zara studies precedents until 3 a.m., practices arguments in her mirror, memorizes citations like other teens memorize songs. She learns the difference between appeals and post-conviction relief, studies evidence rules and criminal procedure. Most importantly, she begins seeing patterns adults missed. Word spreads through the neighborhood that Zara plans to represent her father. Pastor Johnson stops by, face showing concern and admiration. "Sister Zara, the congregation supports your family. But child, are you ready for what you're facing? That courtroom will be full of people hoping to see you fail." Zara looks up from her legal brief, young face showing impossible maturity. "Pastor Johnson, I've been failing publicly for 18 months. People whisper at grocery stores, cross streets to avoid us. How much worse can failure get?" Ruby nods from her chair. "That child sounds like her granddaddy when he decided to integrate the bus system. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save what matters." The barbershop becomes an unlikely source of legal advice. Mr. Johnson, despite sixth-grade education, has spent 60 years watching the justice system work for black families. "Baby girl, you can't beat powerful people at their own game by playing by their rules. You have to change the game entirely." "What do you mean?" "These lawyers and judges expect people to be scared, impressed by degrees and fancy words. But you got something they don't truth on your side and nothing left to lose. That's powerful. As legal knowledge grows, so does understanding of systematic corruption in her father's case. She connects dots experienced lawyers missed or ignored. The final step, filing motion allowing her to represent Marcus. Courthouse clerk Betty tries discouraging her. "Honey, you sure?" Judge Whitman doesn't like surprises, especially young people who think they're smarter than the system. Zara slides motion across the counter, handwriting neat on legal forms she studied for weeks. "Ma'am, I have every right under Maryland Code Section 504, subsection C. The statute doesn't specify age requirements, only competence and defendant consent." Betty examines paperwork, impressed by thoroughness. "Child, you did homework, but homework and surviving Whitman's courtroom are different. My daddy survived jail 18 months for something he didn't do. I can handle a few hours in the courtroom for something he did, serve this community with honor." That night, Zara reviewed the case for the final time. Her brief is 47 pages, citing 62 cases and 17 statutes. She's prepared cross-examinations, evidence presentations, and closing arguments. Most importantly, she's identified the fatal flaw in the prosecution's case. So obvious she can't understand how lawyers missed it. Unless they didn't miss it at all. At 2 a.m., she called the detention center once more. "Daddy, tomorrow changes everything. Either I prove you're innocent or we go down fighting together. But we won't give up." Marcus's voice carries pride and terror. "Princess, I don't know whether to be proud or scared." "Be both, Daddy." "I am." Friday morning arrives gray and cold. Zara dresses in her only good suit, navy blue from the debate team, now altered professionally. Walking toward the courthouse, carrying a borrowed briefcase and surprising confidence, she's no longer just a 16-year-old whose father is jailed. She's a lawyer with a case to win. Patel's gas station sits across from the police precinct. its faded sign advertising lottery tickets and energy drinks. Mr. Patel emigrated from Gujarat 15 years ago, knowing every regular customer and cop who stops for coffee. Zara approaches nervously, backpack over her shoulder. Mr. Patel? I'm Zara Washington. My father is Officer Marcus Washington. He patrolled this area. Mr. Patel's face brightens. Officer Washington! Good man. He helped my son Arjun when bullies attacked him. Very kind, not like other officers. Sir, my father's in jail. They say he stole evidence money, but I know he didn't. Do you have security footage from March 15th? Mr. Patel looks troubled. Police came, took footage, said it was evidence. But do you keep backup copies? He glances around nervously, then motions toward his back office. Your father helped my family. We help each other in community, yes? The small room contains a desk with invoices, family photos, and a computer monitor showing security angles. Mr. Patel pulls up archived footage, scrolling through dates. March 15th, evening time. Yes, sir, around 9:30 to 10:30 p.m. The grainy footage loads slowly. At 9:52 p.m., Marcus's patrol car appears, but something's wrong. Marcus gets out, pushing the disabled vehicle. The car is broken, Mr. Patel observes. Zara's heart pounds watching the timestamp. The prosecution claims Marcus stole evidence at 9:47 p.m., but here he is at 9:52 p.m., 5 miles away, pushing his broken car. This proves Daddy couldn't have stolen that money. But Mr. Patel looks uncomfortable. After your father's arrest, Detective Collins came to see me. Said footage was corrupted evidence that I should delete everything. He was very threatening. But you didn't delete it? I am an engineer by training. Engineers keep backup systems. This footage exists on a separate hard drive at my home. They continue reviewing surveillance. The next morning, Collins's unmarked car pulls into the parking lot. He spends 27 minutes inside with Mr. Patel. He demanded all the footage from the night before, said it contaminated the investigation, told me to delete everything immediately. And you agreed? I was scared. New immigrant, small business. When a detective makes demands, you listen. But I felt wrong afterwards. Your father helped my family, so I kept backups. Zara stares at the screen, mind racing. Collins knew this footage would prove Daddy's innocence. That's why he made you delete it. Back home, Zara cross-references cell records, bank transactions, and work schedules. At 3 a.m., she discovers the digital smoking gun. Marcus's time card shows he clocked out at 9:30 p.m., giving him time to steal evidence. But examining the digital metadata reveals the original timestamp, 10:02 p.m. Someone changed it to 9:30 p.m. at 11:47 p.m. on March 15th, 2 hours after Marcus's arrest. Her friend Jerome helps with digital forensics. The modification signature belongs to Detective R. Collins. Someone systematically altered evidence to frame your father. As dawn breaks, Zara sits surrounded by proof. Gas station footage showing Marcus couldn't commit the theft. Digital forensics proving deliberate evidence tampering. Witness intimidation demonstrating coordinated cover-up. Tomorrow she'll walk into Judge Whitman's courtroom with documentation that could free her father and expose corruption. She has evidence to win. The question is whether anyone with power will listen to the truth from someone they never expected to matter. Baltimore Circuit Courtroom 4. A fills beyond capacity. Friday morning. Creating an electric atmosphere. Media occupy front rows. Cameras positioned to capture what they expect will be a brief, tragic spectacle. Behind them, the gallery overflows with church ladies in Sunday best, barbershop regulars, high school classmates, and curious onlookers drawn by the novelty of teenagers attempting law. Heavy oak doors swing open and every conversation stops. Zara Washington enters wearing her great-grandfather's vintage Tuskegee Airman jacket, carefully altered to fit her frame. The faded blue fabric carries the weight of family history and generational courage. Her natural hair is styled professionally, carrying a borrowed briefcase that looks large in her small hands. The visual impact is immediate. Here stands a child in a hero's uniform, walking into a system designed to diminish people like her. Gasps ripple through the courtroom, followed by whispers building to anticipation buzz. Judge Patricia Whitman enters, black robes flowing dramatically. Her expression reveals shock, annoyance, and barely contained fury. This isn't the broken family she expected. This is something threatening to her control. "All rise for Honorable Judge Patricia Whitman," the bailiff announces. Zara stands with quiet dignity, posture straight despite dozens of eyes boring into her. When the judge takes seat, Zara steps forward to the defendant's table. "Your Honor, Zara Washington representing Marcus Washington in this criminal appeal." Words hang like challenges. Whitman's eyebrows arch high, phones emerge as spectators prepare to capture swift rejection. "I beg your pardon, young lady?" Whitman's voice carries the sharp edge of someone unaccustomed to surprise. "Your Honor, I'm here to represent my father as provided under Maryland Code Section 5-504. Defendant has consented to family representation. I respectfully request court approval to proceed." Prosecutor Mills springs up, face flushed. "Objection! This is complete mockery. A child cannot walk into court and practice law." Zara opens the briefcase calmly, removing a thick folder with legal precedents and citations. Maryland law doesn't specify age requirements for family representation. The statute requires only competence and informed consent, which my father provided in writing. She slides documents to the court clerk. "I've prepared a brief outline of 17 precedent cases where family members successfully represented defendants, including 3 where representatives were under 21. Judge Whitman snatches the document, scanning rapidly. The legal research is thorough, citations accurate, argument sophisticated. Not amateur theatrics she expected to dismiss. "Miss Washington," she says, voice dripping condescension, "this is highly irregular. Where did you obtain your law degree? Which bar certified you?" Question designed to humiliate, remind everyone Zara is just a teenager playing dress-up. But Zara doesn't flinch. "Your Honor, I don't claim a law degree, but I have constitutional rights, legal standing, and 18 months intensive study. More importantly, I have absolute certainty of my client's innocence and evidence to prove it." Murmur runs through the gallery like electricity. Church members nod approvingly. Pastor Johnson rises slightly. The media lean forward, sensing a bigger story. Mills objects again, voice rising. "This disruption makes a mockery of justice. We can't allow every family member to play lawyer." "Mr. Mills," Zara responds before the judge speaks, a young voice cutting through bluster. "My father had attorneys for 18 months who failed to uncover evidence I found in 2 weeks. Perhaps mockery isn't my presence. Perhaps it's experienced lawyers' failure to seek truth instead of convenient conclusions." The courtroom erupts in gasps, applause, and objections. Whitman pounds gavel repeatedly, sharp cracks echoing like gunshots. "Order!" "I will have an order." When noise dies, something has shifted. Zara is no longer just a grieving daughter. She's demonstrated legal knowledge, tactical thinking, confidence commanding attention from people wanting to dismiss her. Whitman stares at a 16-year-old who turned an orderly courtroom unpredictable. Every instinct says shut this down, restore hierarchy where lawyers speak and families suffer silently. But the legal brief is solid, citations accurate, precedents real. Media present, cameras rolling, any decision will be scrutinized beyond this courtroom. "Miss Washington," she says finally, voice tight with anger, "against better judgment, I'll allow you to represent your father. However, you have exactly 1 hour to present your case. No more disruptions or theatrical displays." Zara nods respectfully, eyes shining with quiet triumph. "Thank you, Your Honor. Truth doesn't require long explanations when evidence speaks clearly." As the judge calls a brief recess, Zara stands alone at the defendant's table, surrounded by institutional power but no longer overwhelmed. She's won the right to speak, but the real battle just begins. In 1 hour, she'll either prove father's innocence and expose conspiracy, or fail publicly before everyone believes in her family's dignity. The 15-minute recess feels like hours as Zara stands in the courthouse hallway, surrounded by chaos. Reporters shove microphones toward her while cameras flash, but her mind focuses entirely on upcoming evidence presentation that will either vindicate her father or destroy their last hope. Detective Ray Collins emerges from the courtroom like a predator sensing vulnerability. His 15 years police experience taught him exactly how to intimidate, approaching Zara with calculated confidence of someone never successfully challenged by teenagers. "Little girl playing lawyer," he says, voice low enough that reporters can't hear. "You think this is a television drama where the underdog wins?" Zara looks up at the man who destroyed her father's life, showing no fear despite a racing heartbeat. "Detective Collins, I know what you did. I have proof." Collins steps closer, using height and badge to intimidate. His cold smile reminds her exactly how powerless she is in this adult world. "You don't know anything, kid. You're 16-year-old with delusions, playing with forces beyond comprehension. Keep pushing where you don't belong, you'll learn how the real world works." "I have evidence of tampering," Zara responds quietly, voice steady despite hanging threat. Collins's expression shifts, revealing the first crack in the confident facade. "Evidence can disappear, little girl. Files get lost, witnesses change minds, accidents happen to people asking too many questions. Ask your mama about staying safe." Before Zara can respond, the courthouse hallway fills with unexpected sight. Word spread through East Baltimore's community networks, church phone trees, barbershop conversations, social media that Marcus Washington's daughter fights for father's freedom. Pastor Johnson arrives first, wearing a hospital chaplain badge. Behind him comes Mrs. Henderson from church, Mr. Robinson from barbershop, Ms. Davis from elementary school. Trickle becomes a flood of supporters carrying homemade signs despite the workday. "We're here for you, baby girl," Mrs. Henderson calls out, voice carrying authority of someone who raised 6 children. "Your daddy walked my grandson to school every day. We don't forget goodness." Young man Damon pushes through the crowd wearing a maintenance uniform. "Officer Washington saved my life when I was dealing drugs. Instead of arresting me, he talked to my grandmother. I got my GED because of him." The crowd grows, creating impromptu rallies on courthouse steps. Someone brought a banner reading, "Justice for Marcus Washington." Others hold pictures of Marcus coaching basketball or helping elderly residents. Ms. Rodriguez approaches carrying a heavy box. "Mija, I brought every legal precedent about evidence tampering. Library staff are ready to help. Community support creates powerful visual cameras captured eagerly, but Collins watches the growing crowd with irritation. Intimidation works better privately." Inside the courthouse library, Zara discovers something chilling. Records show disturbing patterns extending beyond her father's case. Officer Johnson, convicted 2019. Officer Brown, convicted 2021. Officer Davis, convicted 2023. All black officers, all investigated by Collins, all prosecuted by Mills, all sentenced by Whitman to maximum penalties. "This isn't just about Daddy," Zara whispers, staring at the computer screen. "This is about eliminating every officer who might challenge the system." But discovery time cuts short when she returns to the courtroom and finds a crisis threatening to end her case. The manila folder containing all physical documentation, surveillance photos, forensics printouts, timeline analyses has mysteriously vanished from the defendant's table. Court Clerk Betty approaches with practiced innocence. "Sorry, honey. Your evidence files accidentally misfiled during recess. These things happen in busy courtrooms." Prosecutor Mills watches with barely concealed satisfaction. Your Honor, without proper documentation, Miss Washington can't proceed. The courtroom falls silent as everyone realizes what happened. 18 months of investigation, weeks of preparation, and the family's last hope apparently disappeared in 15 minutes of courthouse bureaucracy. Judge Whitman raises gavel, preparing to dismiss the case due to lack of evidence, when Zara's clear voice cuts through tension. Your Honor, I have digital copies on my phone backed up to cloud storage. Physical documents can disappear, but truth survives. She holds up a smartphone containing enough evidence to expose corruption reaching the highest levels of Baltimore's justice system. But doubt creeps in. Will digital copies be enough? The clock shows 2:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, Zara will either present the most important argument of her life or watch Father's appeal crumble into procedural technicalities. Outside, the community continues growing. Inside, a 16-year-old stands alone against a system designed to silence people like her, armed with nothing but truth and the desperate love of a daughter refusing to let father die in prison. Time runs out for justice in Judge Whitman's courtroom. Judge Whitman's gavel falls and the packed courtroom settles into electric silence. Every eye focuses on Zara as she stands at the defendant's table, smartphone containing only remaining evidence that could free her father. Miss Washington, you have 57 minutes remaining. Use them wisely. Zara takes a deep breath and begins speaking with clarity that transforms the courtroom atmosphere. Her voice carries no teenage uncertainty. She sounds like someone who spent 2 years preparing for this moment. Your Honor, Marcus Washington clocked in at 6 a.m. March 15th. Bank surveillance shows him depositing a paycheck at 12:47 p.m. Gas station footage confirms a patrol car mechanical failure at 9:52 p.m., requiring him to push disabled vehicle into the parking lot. She moves around the courtroom with natural attorney instincts, smartphone projecting timestamps and locations with mathematical precision. Alleged theft occurred at 9:47 p.m. at an evidence facility, 5 miles from where my father was stranded. Physical impossibility, even with a working vehicle, drive time is 8 minutes minimum. Prosecutor Mills springs up desperately. Objection! She's testifying without being sworn. I'm presenting evidence, Zara responds smoothly. Cell records confirm my father's phone location. Detective Collins's phone pinged the same tower at 11:30 p.m. 2 hours after arrest, 30 minutes before someone altered my father's time card. Courtroom buzz grows as people understand implications. Zara continues methodically, each evidence piece connecting like unbreakable chain links. Digital forensics reveals the original time card showed father clocking out 10:02 p.m. Someone changed it to 9:30 p.m. at 11:47 p.m., creating a false opportunity window. She turns toward Detective Collins, who sits looking increasingly uncomfortable. His confident demeanor evaporated, replaced by nervous, fidgeting cameras capturing unflattering detail. Detective Collins, please take the witness stand. Collins looks to Mills for rescue, but the prosecutor appears frozen. Judge Whitman, trapped by procedure and media presence, allows questioning. Collins approaches like a man walking to execution. 15 years of police authority means nothing against teenagers armed with irrefutable evidence. Zara positions directly before the witness stand, small stature creating David versus Goliath, visual cameras capture perfectly. Detective Collins, did you visit Patel's gas station March 16th morning after my father's arrest? Collins shifts uncomfortably, eyes darting between lawyer-judge, exits. I don't recall specific visits during the investigation. Zara's screen displays security footage showing Collins entering the store with a clear timestamp. Then explain this surveillance showing you spending 27 minutes inside demanding Mr. Patel delete previous evening's footage? That was routine evidence collection. Routine to destroy evidence proving my father's innocence. Routine to intimidate witnesses covering police misconduct. The courtroom atmosphere was completely transformed. Gallery members lean forward, sensing historic moments. Mills makes a final desperate objection. This is harassment of a decorated officer. Witch hunt based on conspiracy theories. Zara addresses the entire courtroom, voice rising with 18 months of righteous anger. Seeking truth isn't harassment. Exposing lies isn't a conspiracy. My father served 20 years with honor. Detective Collins systematically framed him, then intimidated my family into silence. She displays final evidence digital forensics showing Collins's credentials on every altered document, deleted file, tampered evidence. Metadata doesn't lie. User ID R. Collins accessed personnel files, evidence logs, patrol schedules, time card records between 11:15 to 11:52 p.m. March 15th. 37 minutes systematic tampering designed to frame innocent men. Collins breaks completely, composure crumbling. Those were routine administrative adjustments. Sometimes we correct paperwork errors. At midnight on arrest night? Changing timestamps, creating false evidence? That's not administration, that's conspiracy. Judge Whitman stares at evidence throughout her courtroom, unable to dismiss mathematical precision of timestamps, locations, and digital forensics. Every camera captures her reaction to systematic corruption proof. For the first time, Whitman addresses Zara with approaching respect rather than condescension. Miss Washington, your research appears quite thorough and professionally presented. Acknowledgement sends electricity through the courtroom. In 18 months, no judge ever spoke to Zara with anything but dismissal. This represents more than legal victory recognition of intelligence, competence, and the right to demand justice. The gallery erupts in spontaneous applause. Whitman doesn't suppress. Community expresses what months of silence prevented. Truth matters more than authority. Justice belongs to everyone regardless of age. Collins sits slumped, career destroyed by teenagers who refuse to accept powerful people, can't be accountable. Victory belongs entirely to someone everyone expected to fail. The gavel hovers in Judge Whitman's hand like a sword of justice suspended between corruption and truth. The packed courtroom holds its collective breath, cameras focused on this moment that will either vindicate 18 months of suffering or crush a family's last hope forever. Detective Collins sits slumped in the witness chair, his 15-year career destroyed by irrefutable digital evidence presented by someone he dismissed as irrelevant. Prosecutor Mills shuffles papers frantically, searching for legal technicalities that might salvage his case, but mathematics and timestamps don't lie or bend to prosecutorial pressure. Judge Whitman stares at the evidence displayed throughout her courtroom surveillance footage, digital forensics, cell tower records, metadata analysis, all pointing to systematic corruption she can no longer ignore or dismiss. Her reputation depends on maintaining credibility, and every camera captures her struggle between institutional loyalty and undeniable truth. Based on the evidence presented today, Judge Whitman begins, her voice carrying none of its earlier condescension, evidence of systematic tampering, witness intimidation, and prosecutorial misconduct. She pauses, the weight of justice heavy in her hands. I hereby overturn the conviction of Marcus Washington. All charges dismissed with prejudice. The courtroom explodes in celebration that shakes the marble foundations. 18 months of suppressed emotion, financial devastation, social isolation, and family suffering release in a tidal wave of joy that no gavel can contain. Church ladies leap from their seats praising God. Barbershop regulars embrace with tears streaming down weathered faces. High school classmates cheer like their team won championships. Zara stands motionless at the defendant's table for several heartbeats, her 16-year-old mind struggling to process that the impossible actually happened. Truth triumphed over power. Justice emerged from corruption. A teenager's voice proved stronger than institutional authority. Diane Washington pushes through the celebrating crowd, reaching her daughter with arms wide open. Mother and daughter embrace with intensity that cameras capture, but cannot fully convey the reunion of a family torn apart by lies and rebuilt through courage. Baby girl, you did it, Diane whispers through tears. You brought your daddy home. Ruby Washington sits in her wheelchair near the front row, insulin monitor beeping steadily, but her eyes shine with pride that transcends her physical limitations. Lord Jesus, I lived to see justice in my time. That child fought like her granddaddy in the movement. Pastor Johnson leads the gallery in spontaneous prayer, his voice rising over celebration. Thank you for showing us that David still defeats Goliath, that truth still conquers lies, that young voices can speak power to authority. The media scrum becomes chaotic as reporters push toward Zara with microphones and cameras, but she maintains composure beyond her years. This moment belongs to her family and community, not sound bites and television ratings. Judge Whitman retreats to her chambers without ceremony, her 15-year career forever marked by this public exposure of systematic bias. The case that should have been routine conviction became historic vindication, broadcast live across Baltimore and streaming nationwide. 3 hours later, Baltimore City Detention Center processed Marcus Washington's immediate release. 18 months of wrongful imprisonment end with bureaucratic paperwork and property return. But freedom tastes sweeter than any meal he remembers. The reunion occurs at sunrise, symbolic timing that nobody planned but everyone notices. Marcus Washington walks through detention center gates wearing the same clothes from his arrest day, now loose from institutional food and stress-induced weight loss, but his dignity intact. Zara runs toward her father with a sprint speed that covers ground between injustice and justice, between separation and reunion, between broken family and restored wholeness. Their embrace creates the photograph that will appear on front pages across Maryland. A father and daughter reunited by courage that refused to accept lies as truth. "Princess, my baby girl became a woman while I was gone," Marcus whispers, voice thick with emotion and pride. "And what a magnificent woman she became. Daddy, I just fought like you taught me. Never give up on what's right, even when everyone says you're wrong." The community celebration moves from the courthouse to the neighborhood, transforming into a block party that lasts until dawn. Mr. Johnson opens his barbershop for free haircuts, local restaurants donate food, and someone brings speakers playing music that draws dancing despite exhaustion. But the ripple effects extend far beyond celebration. By evening, 3 other families approach Zara with cases eerily similar to her father's. Black police officers convicted on evidence that now appears systematically tampered. Mrs. Johnson clutches a folder containing her husband's case documents. "Miss Zara, they did the same thing to my husband, Officer David Johnson. Detective Collins investigated. Prosecutor Mills prosecuted. Judge Whitman sentenced him to 25 years. Can you help us too?" Officer Davis's son, barely older than Zara, shows her identical patterns of altered timestamps, deleted surveillance footage, and intimidated witnesses. "You showed us we don't have to just accept injustice. We can fight back." Zara examines their evidence with experienced eyes that shouldn't exist in someone who hasn't graduated high school. The pattern is unmistakable, systematic, and criminal. "We'll find the truth together," she promises. Nobody fights alone anymore. That evening, local news broadcasts carried the story nationally. #JusticeForAll begins trending on social media as people share Zara's story with commentary about youth activism, police corruption, and justice system reform. But for Zara Washington, sitting around her family's dinner table for the first time in 18 months, the victory means something simpler and more profound than national attention. It means her father helping her with calculus homework. It means her mother's laughter returning to their small apartment. It means her grandmother's insulin shots administered by loving hands instead of prison infirmary nurses. Most importantly, it means a 16-year-old girl proved that truth is stronger than power, that courage can triumph over corruption, and that justice belongs to everyone brave enough to demand it, regardless of age, race, or social status. Marcus Washington is free, but his daughter's fight for justice is just beginning. 6 months later, the storefront at 1847 Pennsylvania Avenue displays a hand-painted sign. Washington Family Legal Aid, Truth and Justice for All. Windows are covered with thank you letters, newspaper clippings, and photos of transformed families. Inside, Zara Washington sits at a donated desk wearing a Howard University pre-law sweatshirt, helping her fourth wrongfully convicted family. At 17, she splits time between high school and legal consultations, maintaining 4.0 GPA while running Baltimore's most trusted police accountability resource. Mrs. Davis, your husband's case follows the exact same pattern, Zara explains, spreading documents across a conference table built from church pews. We know how to fight this now. Marcus works as a police reform consultant, traveling nationwide training departments. His wrongful conviction became credentials for justice system expertise, turning 18 months of suffering into a lifelong mission. The Washington precedent freed 3 officers, led to Collins facing federal charges, Mills resigning after investigation, Whitman taking early retirement. Conviction rate disparities dropped 40% since their case. "Princess, look what you started," Marcus tells his daughter during lunch. "Whole movement for reform." One voice became a chorus of change. Ruby Washington, now 81, reads thank you letters from families across Maryland. "Child, your great-grandfather fought Nazis, your granddaddy fought Jim Crow, you fought corruption right here. 3 generations, same courage." Afternoon brings NAACP Youth Activist Award, but Zara deflects attention to community support. "I couldn't win without Mr. Patel's courage, Ms. Rodriguez's research, Pastor Johnson's support, and everyone who refused to let my family fight alone." That evening, Zara walks through neighborhoods where corner stores no longer feel like war zones. Police officers wave instead of glare. Children play without harassment and fear. Change happens slowly but measurably. She stops at the basketball court her father once coached, now renovated with donations. Teenagers practice under LED lights, laughter echoing off apartments that harbor hope for better tomorrows. "Miss Washington," calls Jamal, 14, whose brother was arrested last year. "My mom says you helped when police planted evidence. Thank you for teaching us we don't have to accept whatever they say." These conversations happen daily. Young people learning rights, parents discovering resources, families understanding justice isn't privilege, but birthright. Standing in community court, watching children play instead of running from police, Zara reflects on 18 months changing everything. A scared 16-year-old who felt powerless became a voice for voiceless. Proof courage transforms communities. She speaks directly to the camera, a message for anyone facing impossible odds, anyone told they're too young or powerless to matter. "They counted me out because of age, race, where I came from. Said I was a child playing adult games. But the truth doesn't care about that. Truth just needs someone brave enough to speak it, determined enough to prove it. Someone refusing to accept injustice is inevitable." Her voice grows stronger, carrying conviction earned through battles won. What truth are you afraid to speak? What injustice will you choose to fight? What system needs your voice demanding accountability? You don't need a law degree recognizing right from wrong. You don't need wealth demanding equal treatment. You just need courage to stand up, community to stand with you, commitment never giving up on what's right. The camera captures her walking home as streetlights illuminate Pennsylvania Avenue, briefcase in hand, ready for tomorrow's battles. Behind her, Washington Family Legal Aid sign glows in darkness, a beacon for families who thought justice was beyond reach. Subscribe if you believe truth is stronger than power. Share if young voices deserve hearing, like if you're ready to fight for justice in your community. Because somewhere tonight another family needs someone brave enough saying, "Not on my watch, not in my community, not while I have breath speaking truth to power."